A deadly disease known as the Medusa virus spreads throughout the world. It is highly infectious and, like its namesake, rapidly turns its victim cells to a stone-like state. The mortality rate is a frightening 100%. The United Nations declares a state of emergency while the National Security Agency of the United States of America holds a meeting where they suspect Japanese corporation Venus Gate as the mastermind behind the disease. Vega, its CEO, announces the selection of 160 individuals to enter cryosleep while they search for a cure. This is the USA's last chance to stage an offensive, and they decide to insert their own agent to infiltrate Venus Gate's cryo facility. Two sisters, Kasumi and Shizuku, along with the other chosen applicants, travel to the craft facility in Scotland. Media crews accompany them for documentation, which angers a man who kindly tells them to get off. Once inside, they're given special bracelets, which Vega explains will closely monitor their bio data. He introduces them to Alice, an AI that will monitor and protect them. He adds that if they contact Medusa and the metal plate turns black, it signals that they will soon die. Kasumi expresses her reservations about going to sleep and being separated from her sister, but Shizuku reassures her that they will meet again one day. All the chosen candidates are soon stripped bare of their belongings, with one man angrily remarking that this place is no different from prison. They are led into a huge chamber and each are assigned cryopods. Kasumi repeatedly tells herself she will see her sister again as she slowly drifts to sleep. Kasumi awakens soon after and finds the chamber overgrown with thorny vines. The other candidates soon emerged from their pods and they are just as bewildered as she is. They try contacting the Venus Gate staff, but to no avail. They notice strange dinosaur-like bird creatures swirling around them, which a young boy identifies as demon bats from his video game. All of them are attacked by a whole flock of demon bats, who kills several of the survivors. They stampede towards the elevator, but in their panic, hundreds of them fall into a discount rancor pit and they are all devoured. The rest of the survivors finally make it out of another emergency exit. Kasumi escapes with 6 other survivors: Marco, a former inmate, Ron, a U.S. police officer, Alexandro, an elderly senator, Catherine, a former nurse, Peter, a doctor and engineer, and Tim, a young boy. While they try to comprehend their situation and what exactly happened to Venus Gate, Marco remarks they should leave those who lag behind, but is persuaded by Kasumi against this. They all agree on one thing: they have to get out. Peter leads them throughout the facility and they end up at a water coolant plant. Alexander's complaining attracts a velociraptor-like monster that brutally mauls him. Tim exclaims that it can only react to sound, prompting Marco to push everyone into the canals to escape. They continue to be chased by the monsters, but they fortunately find an armory and soup themselves up with guns and weaponry. They manage to fend them off, but Marco suffers a few broken bones. After Catherine fixes him up, she grows irritated at Tim's constantly comparing their situation to a video game and wants to bitch slap him, but she manages to control herself. Suddenly Marco and Ron confront Peter, who realize he is a Venus Gate staff. Peter holds Kasumi at gunpoint and flees into an elevator, but he tells them of another escape route. They arm themselves with weapons to rescue Kasumi. But Catherine makes a startling discovery from the databanks. Only 48 hours have passed since their cryosleep. Kasumi learns that Peter encountered her sister hours earlier, but he no longer knows where she is. Meanwhile, the other survivors make their way through a ruined section of the facility, careful not to alert the monsters. Catherine's yelp of pain alerts them to their presence, forcing a frantic escape that culminates in Marco blowing up a gas pipe. Kasumi and Peter's elevator are caught in the explosion and things go dark. Kasumi regains consciousness and finds herself in a strange laboratory filled with alien-like capsules. She overhears Peter in a nearby room and is started to discover he was responsible for the facility's abrupt shutdown, and he appears to be in cahoots with Marco. Peter discovers her by the doorway and explains that he was the inventor of the cryo capsules, but he was kicked out of the project soon after its completion. Outraged, he planned to leak incriminating data about Venus Gates, but something went horribly wrong. He narrowly saves her from being eaten by a monster. Before he is killed, he throws her a data chip and tells her to show the world the truth. Marco gives her machine gun cover and the two make a daring escape. One of the monsters chases after them, but they are rescued by Catherine and Ron, who throw Molotov cocktails to set it alight. In the chaos, Kasumi drops the data chip and the information is lost forever. They resemble in a cellar, where Marco reveals that he is a British SAS agent who infiltrated Venus Gate to destroy it. An earthquake causes the room to tremble and soon after Vega himself stumbles inside and Marco has to be persuaded not to shoot him on sight. He forces Vega to lead the way through a hidden passage where he finally reveals the origins of the Medusa virus. After it crash-landed from space. The virus killed all but one girl who he discovered could turn dreams into reality, creating beings he dubbed alternatives. He hypothesized that intense emotional distress causes the Medusa virus to evolve, allowing its users' dream to become reality powers. However, his experiments on Alice caused her untimely demise. Later, he planned to assemble the most promising candidates from around the world to continue his research, where he found another girl, Shizuka, whose power far exceeded analysis. However, something went terribly wrong, resulting in the entire facility to be engulfed in vines and monsters. He attempts to kill himself, but Kasumi shoots the gun out of his hand just in time. Another earthquake forces them to escape the collapsing room, but Vega chooses to stay behind and is killed under the rubble. Tim runs ahead and is seemingly ignored by the monsters who attack the rest of the group. Marco is nearly killed trying to buy time for them to escape, but Ron narrowly saves him from being eaten. In a heroic stand, he tells Marco he is done leaving people behind before succumbing to the Medusa virus. They continue to chase Tim towards a section of the tower and discover he was temporarily brainwashed by Alice to lead them here. After escaping through a hatch, they discovered the entire castle enveloped in thorny vines reminiscent of Sleeping Beauty. Kasumi discovers video footage of the accident before it happened, and realizes her sister is still inside. She runs back to the castle, forcing Marco and the others to commandeer a helicopter in an attempt to rescue her. Catherine, who lost a child of her own, refuses to let another boy die and holds Marco at gunpoint to leave. While this plays out, they witness the vines coalesce into a massive winged monster. Catherine suddenly begins succumbing to the Medusa virus, and her gunfire causes the helicopter to spiral out of control. Marco ends up falling right into Kasumi's lab, and he agrees to help her find her sister. Meanwhile, Tim remains inside the helicopter, saved by Catherine in her final moments. Marco and Kasumi enter the lowest level, but things seem strangely normal. Marco is startled to see his sister, and he realizes that this is all an illusion created by Alice. Alice explains that the top-level sleeper must be defended at all costs, whose stability hinges on Kasumi's survival. Thus companions were orchestrated to accompany and defend her, and Marco has outlived his usefulness. He realizes that the biochips inserted inside them earlier allow Alice to take control of their dreams, and he shoots himself in the neck. He shocks himself awake and commits to fulfilling his mission of destroying Venus Gate. Vines attempt to prevent him from doing so, but he manages to complete the self-destruct sequence. Meanwhile, Kasumi finally enters Shizuka's chamber. Thorns try to hold her back while a vine clone of Shizuka dissuades her from going any further. Kasumi persists and she notices a scar on Shizuka's wrist from an earlier suicide attempt where hers should be. This is when things get really complicated. Previously, Kasumi wanted to commit suicide after causing trouble for her sister, but Shizuka manages to dissuade her from doing so. Soon after arriving at Venus Gate, Kasumi decides she wants to kill herself after all, but she tries to have Shizuka join her. A struggle between them causes Kasumi to plunge to her death while a grief-stricken Shizuka goes insane and the Medusa virus begins manifesting itself. The real Kasumi and Shizuka are now dead, but Shizuka's consciousness has joined with Alice's. Thus, the entire orientation from earlier was all a dream orchestrated by Shizuka. She creates a body double of Kasumi and implants her sister's memories into it, during the abrupt shutdown of the facility. Shizuka places the new Kasumi into a cryopod to replace her dead sister, while Kasumi's real dead body is kept in the highest tower of the facility. Shizuka, now within the consciousness of Alice, apologizes to Kasumi for the deception, but insists that she live on. Marco drags her out of harm's way and both the castle and dream effectively crumble away. Kasumi tells Marco how she wishes all this could have just been a dream. He tells her that he hopes she finds the will to carry on before succumbing to his injuries. She kisses him on the cheek and thanks him for everything he has done. She finds Tim still alive, and after discarding both their bracelets, she brings him along so they can find his parents. If you